Good morning everybody and welcome to Wembley Stadium today for the press conference with FA Chief Executive Martin Glenn, Technical Director Dan Ashworth and of course new England manager Gareth Southgate. We'll now open it up to the floor for questions for a period of around 20 minutes, starting with Nick Collins from Sky Sports News. But can I just remind you all to use the microphone provided and state your name and the organisation you work for.
Gareth, hello. First of all, congratulations. What excites you most about being appointed full-time England manager?
Well, it's a fantastic honour, fantastic opportunity to help a young team develop over the next few years. I think we've seen over the last 4 matches where I've been in charge huge potential amongst the players. There's great expectations always that come with this job, and I'm looking forward to embracing that and taking on that challenge. To get the job is, as I say, an honour. It's a great moment, but I'm really keen that the hard work starts now. I want to do the job and be successful at doing the job. So there's so much for me to look forward to over the next few years, really.
They do call it the impossible job. I mean, I don't think it is. There's an awful lot of goodwill surrounding your appointment, but are you ready for everything that it could entail?
Well, of course, I've had a great insight over the last few weeks into what the job entails, every aspect of it. I don't think any job is impossible. I think I said a few weeks ago that some jobs are more difficult than others, some are more complex. This is certainly one of those, has great interest for everybody. And that comes with great responsibility, but I'm ready to embrace that. You know, I feel I've had that throughout my career in different roles I've been in. And now is a great moment to step forward and help lead our country through what I think can be a really exciting period.
Is there anything you can say at this stage about your backroom staff?
Not at the moment. Obviously, everything really got confirmed on a personal level yesterday, so we're working towards that. We hope to be able to make some announcements on that soon, but at this moment in time, there's nothing.
But would you hope, for example, to be able to retain the services of Steve Holland, who was with you at under-21 level as well?
Well, I think everybody knows. How important Steve has been to me in terms of the work we've done over the last few years and over the last few weeks. So there's no secret in that, but at the moment everything is still ongoing.
Understood. I won't push it too much, but Steven Gerrard is recently retired. Might there be a role for him somewhere down the line?
Well, I think what's important, we have lots of former international players who I think it's important for us as an organisation, and I know Dan will probably speak about it more, but that the doors at St George's Park are always open. You know, we want to help players who have a desire to have a career in coaching to do that. We've had people like Jamie Carragher in with our junior teams. Obviously Phil and Gary Neville have been involved with our teams. So that is one part of coach development that we're looking at. Also, there are different opportunities to involve players. Terry Butcher came into our last camp to present Gary Cahill with his 50th cap, and those sorts of things of passing on the tradition, passing the shirt down the years are important. I think it's important that our players understand the history of playing for England, and that they're not just it's not just about them and the moment that they're in.
When you took over as interim manager, Gareth, you told us that Wayne Rooney would be your captain. Is that still the way you feel about it?
Yeah, Wayne Rooney is the England captain. I think I said that at the beginning of the interim period. I think what's also clear is that I've only selected him to start in 2 of the 4 matches that we've had. So it's obviously not a case that I think Wayne expects to play every game. So important for me that I think we develop more leaders in that group. I've talked about that over the last couple of months. When I played for England, particularly in '96, when we had such a successful team, there were captains throughout the team, captains of the club. And if we're going to be successful in the next few years, developing leadership, developing resilience is one of the key areas. So we've got to develop that. We've got to give other people opportunities to lead in different ways. Wayne has played an important part for England up to this point. I'm sure can do that in the future, but we also have to develop others.
It was certainly clear just how important a role Wayne Rooney was able to play in Slovenia, for example, when you did drop him from the starting lineup. But given what happened with the socialising at the team hotel on that night off, has that changed your opinion in any way of his future within the England squad?
Well, I think the biggest, well, two parts to that question really. One is that in terms of anybody's future with the team, we have huge competition for places. That's fundamentally important for us and is a challenge for every player. The other bit is obviously an important matter. When I took over the 4 matches, I changed lots of things about the way that we trained, the way that we prepared. Some things I kept in place. And on the back of those 4 matches, it's an opportunity for me to review with all of the staff and all of the players how we work, what I've observed, what we could improve upon. And you know, the key is we want to develop an elite team. We want to be a world-class team. So every aspect of our training and preparation has got to work towards that. And now's an opportunity on the back of you know what happened in November to really talk to the players and get their thoughts and feelings on that, and as the leader to guide where we go.
Do you feel that as the new manager you have a responsibility to, if you like, lay down the law a little and explain exactly what being an England player entails?
Well, I think you're right that being an England player comes with additional responsibility to being a player that plays club football. But I don't think laying down the law is necessary with this group of players. I like to treat players with respect, treat them as adults. There's got to be trust between a coach and players. That's really important. There's also got to be clear guidelines, but also important the players have some, take some leadership in that. If you look at elite teams, that there's a clear process of the players having some responsibility in what that looks like. And if we're going to have a top team, then I want them involved in that. And I'm sure our ideas will align as we move forward.
I don't expect you to divulge too many details about your contract, but are you able to say whether or not there's a break clause inserted after 2018, depending on the team's performance, assuming you get to the World Cup?
No, there's no break clause. I think it's important that, obviously, I want to be successful in this role, and I'm taking over at a point where our last 2 tournaments haven't been as successful as we would have liked. There is big potential in the squad, but there's a lot of hard work ahead. And before Russia, we've got to qualify for Russia, but we have about 70 days together to prepare the team and to get to the level we'd like to get to. We also have a group of players that I think over the next 3-4 years are going to develop a lot, and we want to build that. So it's important to look not just at short-term results, but what we're trying to do over the longer term, both with the senior team and the junior teams that are coming below.
In terms of your vision for this England team, what would you say?
Well, in the most simple terms, I'd like an England team that excite the public. I'd like an England team that the supporters look forward to watching, and ultimately that they're proud of. And I think if we achieve those 2 aims, then we'll be on the right pathway.
The last decade has seen England qualify very impressively each time, but then falter at the tournament itself. How big is the challenge for you, do you think, to turn that around, given that obviously you have experienced tournament success in Toulon last summer? Yeah.
I mean, we mustn't take qualification for granted, because we've got to keep our eye on the ball. We haven't always qualified for tournaments with England. Clearly, the aim is to go beyond what we've done in the last couple. I've got that experience as a player and as a coach of tournament football. I know what that looks like. I think the players now have some more experience of what that feels like, and we've got to build. That's all part of the building process for improving as a team, performing in those pressure moments, developing that mental resilience, and being able to perform against the very best. Part of maybe the perceived performance in tournaments isn't just about being in a tournament, it's because you're playing better teams, and if you're going to play better teams, you're going to be challenged more. So that's why some of the fixtures against top nations that we've got coming up are great opportunities for us to learn, as we did against Spain.
Gareth, thank you. Martin, could I ask you, how impressed were you with Gareth Southgate, that interview, and what are your thoughts on him taking over now for the next 4 years?
Well, I've been extremely impressed from the moment I walked into the FA about Gareth, the way that he's joined the organisation several years ago, 5 years ago. He actually helped lead the youth review, which helped with Trevor Brooking, totally changed the way that kids play football, developing skills, moving from 11-a-side to smaller-side pitches. So he's a thinker, he's a doer, but the way that he's, I think, developed and nurtured the under-21 squad, I think 9 of the current squad has been directly through the under-21s into the senior team. So he's impressive on a number of levels. His tactical awareness is very good. He's clearly, very articulate. Sorry, Gareth, you don't have to sing your praises. And he's one of the things that doesn't come across, if I can spare Gareth's blushes, is that Gareth has been a captain in every club he's played at, and I think that says something. And so I think, as well as kind of the impressive powers of analysis and thinking that he has to help us win against international opposition, he's also a very strong and proven leader.
You've given him a contract through to 2020 with no break clause. Is that because he's a tough negotiator, or did you really want to give him a strong mandate for the future?
I'm just a real pussycat. He is a tough negotiator, actually, but we had an alignment of interest, and that wasn't anything that we debated. I wanted, and I had a mandate for the board to offer a 4-year contract, because to support a number of things Gareth has said, we've actually got quite a young squad. We need time to see that squad's potential develop and be nurtured, and I'll keep using the word nurture. And so actually, I think we'd do very well in Russia, personally, but, in the hypothetical event that we didn't, there's a longer term project, and I think to support Gareth, to build for the longer term, 2020 and hopefully beyond, I think it was appropriate that we had a contract that reflected that.
Thank you, Martin. Dan, if I could just ask you, how pleased are you that someone who's come through the St George's Park experience and process is now the full-time England manager, and is there anything also you can say about who might become the under-21 manager?
Sure, yeah, first part of the question, absolutely delighted. Obviously I've worked closely with Gareth for 3 years in his role as under-21 coach. I think sometimes when you go through an interview process, internal candidates can be an advantage and a disadvantage. But certainly the way Gareth conducted himself by stepping up into the 4 senior games and through the interview process was outstanding, and confirmed that we felt he was the best candidate for a job by a long way. The second one, regarding the under-21 coach, we'll go through a process for that as well. Obviously, we only confirmed yesterday that there was a vacancy for the under-21, so nothing to comment on this moment in time.
Gareth, Steve Scott from ITV News. Congratulations. You were talking about trust a little earlier. Did you feel let down by your players on that infamous night off?
I think as a coach, you have to have an environment where you give people responsibility, and you sometimes step back and learn a lot from those moments. And then the important thing for me is now there's an opportunity to talk about environment and culture around the team, what's going to make us perform at our very best, because everything has to be geared towards being successful. And if we think we're good enough to play the best teams in the world and give ourselves a slight handicap along the way, well, good luck with that. We've got to make sure that every opportunity to recover, to perform at our very best is taken. So I'm not disappointed, because I think young people make decisions, and I made plenty of poor decisions when I was a young player. But it's how you react to that and how you learn from those moments that's important.
How much do you see your job as a psychologist and as much as a manager? I mean, turning the potential you talk about into performance. Why is it, have you identified that some England players find that shirt weighs so heavily on them?
I think every coach is a psychologist. It's a fundamental part of what you do. You're helping the players to perform, you're helping people to perform at their best. and there's got to be a psychological part to that. One of the keys for me is to create a culture like we have with the under-21s, where playing for England is something players look forward to. They want to come back. They feel that they can perform at their very best. They feel relaxed enough to express the way they play with their clubs in an international shirt. And I think we saw elements of that in the matches here against Scotland and Spain, as we'd had a little bit more time to work with the team. The players that have worked with me for a longer period know that's how I work. I want them to have the chance to be as good as they might be, and to do that they've got to feel comfortable enough in the shirt, comfortable enough in the camp, and very clear on their roles and responsibilities in the team.
I need to ask you one question about the story that's dominating football, the game at the moment. Gareth, you grew up through the youth ranks. You're the same age or roughly as a lot of the former footballers who've come out so bravely and talked about their experiences. Was it something when you were growing up that you were aware of in the game?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that the bravery of the players that have come forward is exceptional, and to hear the stories is heartbreaking, really. I think I'm involved in an organisation now that is taking that extremely seriously. And I'm impressed with what they're doing at the moment in terms of investigating that. I can also speak as a parent, and I think it's important. I've been involved in grassroots teams. Pretty much every charter standard club now has their own child protection officer. So it would be wrong to say that nothing's been done over the years. I felt when I was involved in grassroots football that we know what has happened in the past in our country, not just in football but in other parts of society, and there have been enormous strides. The important thing over the next few weeks is that we still investigate what had happened, that we learn from the past, and I must also say that if I'm a parent sending my child to a game over the weekend, I feel that they're in a much better place than we were 15-20 years ago.
And as part of that process, would you encourage former players still, and maybe current players, to come forward to speak out?
Yeah, I think it's very much a personal choice. I think we definitely commend the bravery of those that have spoken out, but lots of people won't feel comfortable speaking out, and we also have to respect that. Some people will have things that they don't want to share publicly. So I think it's very much an individual situation.
And Martin, one question to you. Can you clarify, as part of your inquiry, will you be looking at claims, and there are claims at the moment, that some clubs have paid what's described as hush money to victims?
I mean, absolutely. So I think we need to be clear that we committed, the chairman of the FA, Greg Clark, has committed to a full review shining the torchlight into what happened in the past in football. We have clear laws and rules in the game that need to be followed, and if there's been any evidence of a breach of those, so hushing up would be one, subject to due process, i.e. the police need to be the right place in this. When it's our turn to apply the rules, we absolutely will, from top to bottom, regardless of size of club. But I just want to say one other thing, if I could. I mean, the FA, as Gareth said, football's in a very different place today than it was 20 years ago. And I think football takes child safeguarding very seriously, and if I may say, does it very well. I mean, we have 35,000 designated safety officers across the country. Last year alone, 55,000 police checks were done. We've run 30,000 courses to explain to people about the basics of child protection. You can see it on our website, very good video narrated by Graham Lasso, which we've done for a couple of years. It says, look, we want a positive and welcome environment for football, and I think it is, but be safe, not sorry. So this is a very different world today, and I think that is important to get it into proportion, but absolutely total commitment. If the FA have made errors, we'll own up to them, as must the rest of football, if avoidable errors have been made.
On the subject of the payments, Damien Collins, the MP, said yesterday that he would urge all clubs, or he said they should come forward, admit they've got these contracts, rip them up, be honest about it. Do you agree with him? And what should happen to clubs, do you think, if they have had these contracts in place?
Well, I think, like I said, we have the rules that we can apply and will apply if the rules have been broken. It's as simple as that. and there has to be a situation where people cannot be, if there are restrictive contracts through employment law which prevent people from speaking out about a crime, because we're talking about crimes here, then it must be dealt with. And the primacy needs to be clear, though. Where do the police get involved, and then where do the FA? But absolutely, the only way that this gets dealt with is through openness and honesty, and everybody exposing what has happened if those records exist.
Martin, after more than 860 calls to the NSPCC in a week, what's your reaction to the scale of the response, and do you privately feel there was a cover-up in the game?
Well, the scale, I think, as Gareth said, this is part of because football is so big, this is, child abuse is a society issue, of which obviously, because of football's importance, we have 2 or 3 million people playing football every weekend, 800,000 volunteers, the scale is big. So it's hard to say of those calls, whether that's a large number or a small number. I don't know, and I don't know how many are real versus how many were, are going to be then followed up. So I think of course there's going to be a growing awareness of it, and I welcome it because it needs to be dealt with, because there are some clearly damaged people I'd say as well, whose bravery we should acknowledge in actually coming out, because it will help uncover some issues that we can't let forward go again. But I can't say, do I think there's been a cover-up in a game? I doubt it. I think the FA has, as I say, since the late 90s, taken safeguarding extremely seriously. We wrote it into the standard chartered rules that there should be safety officers. And it was a time when society was very different. For 10 years, we've had a relationship with NSPCC, which actually we celebrated in Wembley a few weeks ago, where there's a 24-hour helpline where people can speak up. So I actually think that within society there is a wider acceptance that it's unacceptable. I think these crimes are a combination of motive and opportunity, and I think the opportunity is much less in organised sport than it was 20 years ago, and that's to be commended.
David Bowden, Sky News. Mr. Glenn, you talk about what you are doing. There's a view that perhaps this is growing so quickly, the FA is being reactive. Is it not time to get proactive now and perhaps do more? Are you speaking to each and every club and saying, look, we need to know what went on there, tell us, let's get ahead of this?
Well, I think with respect, we are being proactive, so we've announced there's going to be an external-led review about exactly what you said. So I think that's proactive, not reactive. And also in terms of what we're doing, we're making sure that every club up and down the country, of which there's 20,000, make sure that they're fully understanding and aware of the things that they need to do to ensure that these good practices we've got in place continue. So I think we are being proactive.
You're saying practices now, and I appreciate that, but are you saying to them, look, if anybody has suspicions at these clubs, they need to tell us, and tell us now, so we can get ahead of this? Because we're hearing more and more of these things day after day. We're now pushing 1,000 calls to a helpline that's only been open a week. This is out of control.
Well, let me be clear. We need to be effective, and we need to take it extremely seriously, which we do. And as I said before, we have the power that once we hear of wrongdoings, we will deal with it. And so, that is happening, and that's the process you're describing. So as and when, in combination and cooperation with the police, because we can't afford to step in the way of police inquiries that may inhibit their effectiveness, we'll get it done. So I think the effort is being proactive, taking a lead, taking it seriously.
One question for Gareth. You are of a generation which would have played with some of these guys that have come out. Did you ever hear anything on the grapevine at the time? Is this something you were aware of?
Guys, can we just be mindful that this topic is the matter of an ongoing police investigation? The FA has outlined its position, as has been reinforced by Greg Clark in the last few days. So if we can move on from this topic with due respect.
Can you just answer that question, Gareth?
Sorry, could you repeat it once more?
You're of an age where you would have been playing professional football at the same time as many of these guys who've come forward saying they were abused. As a player, did you hear anything about it? Was there any changing room chat about it at all?
No, I think, I played with one of the players who's recently come forward, and the reality of that, as they have said, is that they haven't felt able to speak about that until this moment, and that's completely understandable. And of course, with the benefit of hindsight, you always relay then things that you've seen from the past and have an understanding of, maybe that's why we saw things we saw. So I think it's a very difficult situation. I think the world was very different 20 years ago. I think it is important we acknowledge that and learn from it. And I repeat, I think a lot of those lessons have already been learned, because that's why the situation we have now in terms of child protection was completely different. But we mustn't be complacent and think that we've got everything right.
One quick follow-up. Can you tell us who that player was? And even if you can't, have you spoken to him since he came out?
Sorry guys, we're not going there. It's a police investigation anyway, so can we ask a few questions from the BBC? Thank you.
Hi Gareth, Andy May from BT Sport. Congratulations first of all on getting the job. What changes have you noticed to your life personally since stepping up, and that includes the interim role, to the manager of the full England team, and how comfortable are you with those sort of aspects, questions like this for example, that we've just been talking about?
Yeah, look, I'm in a position where the comments I make, the opinions I have are going to be reported a lot more widely, and so there's a greatly increased responsibility with that. But that's something I'm comfortable with. I think it's important, if you're in this role, to show leadership. That's why I stepped forward when the opportunity was there in October. I think that was an important moment. There are times in your life where all of the experiences you have as a leader come to the fore, and I think in this role there's a need to be a good coach, a good teacher. There's a need to drive performance, analyse performance, look at how we can improve things. But leadership is fundamental in what we're doing here. And
as a now former under-21 boss, will you be promoting the use of England's best players in Poland at the 21 tournament next summer? Marcus Rashford, for example?
I will be taking them all with the seniors. No, I think... I think as we go forward, the summer is a good opportunity for a group of players that have worked incredibly hard to get to those finals, to build on what they did in Toulon last summer, have a crack at another step up in opposition, see where they go. There's no question in my mind Marcus would benefit from tournament football, but I'm also conscious of his age and his physical load over the season. So we need to assess that as the season goes on, what's right for him as an individual, as well as what's right for the team. But it's an exciting challenge for them, definitely.
Last few questions.
Gareth, Natalie Perks from BBC News. Congratulations. You said you wanted to excite the public and bring back some pride. Do you accept that pride in the England team is at rock bottom at the moment?
I don't believe... Well, given that there were several tournaments in my lifetime we didn't qualify for, I don't quite accept that we're at the low point that was suggested. But of course, as history passes, our view of the past has rose-tinted glasses at times. There's a challenge for us as a team. I saw progression in the 4 matches that I was in charge of before this announcement. And that's what we have to keep doing. We've got to keep building as a team. We've got to keep improving as a team. For any international team, that's going to be important. For any team you work with, and I think the players have a desire to be a top team. And over the next few years, experiences they're gaining with their clubs. A lot of them are now playing. This current squad are playing Champions League football. That's going to enhance their big match experience, their performing under pressure experience. I've a concern with the amount of opportunities for the next age groups down with playing experience. But the bits that we can control, we've got to make outstanding.
Well, Martin's called you a thinker and a doer, but what can you actually do to improve the fact that England turn up at major tournaments looking tired, looking scared, and can't do it when it actually matters in games?
But that's obviously your opinion on what they look like, not
just
mine. Look, I think with any team, first of all, we need a clear style of play, clear understanding of how we want to play. Anybody that's seen the under-21s play over the last few years and what we're doing right through the development teams know that we want to have a lot of possession of the ball where we can, but that can't be without a goal threat. I think we saw in the matches here last month that I believe we've got players that can play a high pressing game. I think that's something that will excite the supporters as well, because it's the sort of mentality that we want to see as English people. And we've got to be savvy about our game intelligence and our game management as well, which maybe we didn't show in the last 10 minutes against Spain. So always opportunity to improve in every area, and we've got to piece all those things together.
Martin, just final questions from me, if I can. You've talked about this scandal being a historical issue. You talked about how it's changed in the last 20 years, but some of these calls that we've heard from the NSPCC have been about present-day abuse. Is this crisis the biggest test, you think, of the FA's governance? And does it really concern you that some of them are about things happening today?
Well, let me take it one at a time. I think of course there will be issues that happen today, which is why all the safeguarding checks are in place, because we recognise that there are still, some bad people out there and they need to be caught. So, of course there will be. That doesn't, you regret it. It doesn't cause huge alarm. I think, this is, I don't need to use hyperbole, this is a really serious issue for football and for society. And I think we can only control what we can control, and I think with the FA taking the lead and saying we are going to open ourselves up, we're going to lay bare whatever the decisions the FA might have made 25 years ago, have it independently reviewed, do the same expectations from clubs, then I think that's all that we can do. But I think it's a big thing to do, and I think it's the right thing to do. So I think if we all treat it seriously, I'm confident that we'll get the best outcome from what is clearly a horrible situation for the victims. But all we can do is deal with it, and I think we are dealing with it.
Thank you very much. We'll head through to radio broadcasters, but just before we leave, Gareth's just got a few words to say.
Yeah, just on behalf of the FA, just wanted to acknowledge Nick Collins and the way that you've covered the England team. I know we're very grateful for the way you've dealt with us over the years. It's been a pleasure personally working with you, and I think we all want to wish you well for the future.
Very good.